So I just want to give a welcome first from the National Center for Culturally Responsive Victim Services. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate you. And before we get started, I'd like to first introduce Ujima's CEO, Karma Cotman.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you're calling in from. We are so excited to finally be here and launching this grant program that is specifically for you, for culturally specific services, culturally specific programs serving our communities. If I was on camera, I'd be clapping, screaming, yelling, jumping, all the things, because we are incredibly excited about today and about what we are going to do together for our communities. I am so committed to this that I'm actually sitting on the side of the road, so I'm not going to come on camera. I was traveling, and so I just wanted to make sure that I called in to just talk about how momentous today is, how momentous this grant program is. We are the Culturally Responsive Victim Services grant program is funded in partnership by the U.S. Department of Justice Office for Victims of Crime. So we're grateful to them for their leadership and for their support of our communities. I want to share a little bit, and I know our team will, about Ujima and CSAE and how we arrived at this moment. Both Ujima and CSAE, the National Organization of Sisters of Color Ending Sexual Assault, are national culturally specific organizations working to address domestic violence, sexual assault, and community violence in our communities, in communities of color and other marginalized communities. And we really saw the need for there to be culturally specific services and have made sure that across the government, there is access, resources, and services for communities that have traditionally been marginalized, haven't had access to federal dollars, haven't had support from national training and technical assistance, haven't had support at the federal level or at the state and local level. And it's really because of what you said to us as your technical assistance providers, that you're doing the work, that you're in community, that you know what your community needs, but you don't have the resources, the funding to get it done, to meet all of the incredible needs that you see in your communities. And so it is with our just esteemed pleasure, and it is with our gratitude to you that we're able to bring this grant program. The Office for Victims of Crime heard that. They heard from you all. They funded Ujima and CSAE to launch a national culturally responsive victim services training and technical assistance center. And through our center, we've been providing training and technical assistance across the country. We've been doing listening sessions. Many of you all, I recognize names, organizations, and folks on the call who've been participating in those listening sessions. And so we formulated this grant program to specifically meet your needs, to specifically meet the needs of our communities. So what you're going to hear from our teams today is really an overview of what the grant program is, how the funding will come out into our communities, and what the training and technical assistance that's going to go with this opportunity is going to look like. Again, I cannot contain my excitement about being here with you today. I wish everyone luck in formulating your grants. What we know, and initially we heard from folks like, are you releasing this? And we're going to have to write over the holiday. So you're going to hear also about the new timeline for submission. But the most important thing that we want to highlight today is the need for culturally specific services, the importance that you play in your community, and what we mean by culturally specific, what we mean by us, for us, from the leadership, from your program, from your policies, from the individuals that are serving folks, and from the community that you see. This grant program is intended to support those organizations like Ujima and CSAE that have been working on behalf of and in service of our communities. So I'm not going to talk much longer. I just wanted to come on, share how excited I am about today, how excited I am to be with more than 250 culturally specific organizations, and it's still climbing, and really looking forward to working with the grantees when the program launches.
Thank you so much, Karma. Thank you for the encouraging word and for a beautiful kickoff. We also have Greta Gardner, Ujima's legal deputy chief director, also on the line. Greta, did you want to say a couple of words?
I just wanted to say welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And kudos to our Ujima team for putting on this fantastic orientation webinar. And we hope to get scores of applications. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Charlisa.
Awesome. Hello.
Next slide, please.
All right. So this grant, as Karma mentioned, this grant is funded by the Office on Victims Against Crime. We can go to the next slide. All right, so the National Center for Culturally Responsive Victim Services. The National Center for Culturally Responsive Victim Services is a project of the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black Community, also known as UJIMA, and the National Center of Sisters of Color Ending Sexual Assault, CISE. A little bit more about both organizations. UJIMA serves as the serves as the National Culturally Specific Services Issue Resource Center to provide support and to be a voice for the Black community in response to domestic, sexual, and community violence. And CISE is an advocacy organization of women of color dedicated to working with our communities to create a just society in which all women of color are able to live happy, healthy lives free of violence. And collectively, we are known as the National Center for Culturally Responsive Victim Services, the Center.
Alrighty. So who are we? The center is, again, the National Center for Culturally Responsive Victim Services. And our main goals at the center are to promote racial equity and access in victim services for communities of color, provide TEA, technical assistance and training for culturally specific organizations across the country, build their capacity and infrastructure for those culturally specific victim services in communities of color, and then to increase access to culturally specific victim services for survivors. Okay, so why are we doing this work? As all of you know, violence impacts the entire community and therefore requires a community response. Violence prevention is a collective action project. And so we need the communities to be working to do that. And so we as an organization and as the center seek to support culturally specific responses and support community leaders who are on the ground, keeping their community safe and doing the work. Okay, so what does it mean to be culturally specific? Being a culturally specific organization means that you have been intentional and you've been intentionally centering the needs, the lived realities, the experiences, the challenges faced by survivors within a specific community. This also means that your programs are rooted in your community's culture, the community's identity, and the nuances and intersectionalities of your community. And although you may have the ability to serve everyone, you have specifically designed and conceptualized your programming to be rooted in serving and supporting the culturally specific community that you live in. And so that also means that the leadership, the board, and staffing are reflective of the identified culturally specific community. Okay, and so why is culturally specific work important? Culturally specific work is normalizing how we move through the world. It's for us, by us, and with us, specifically with the community. Considers who has historically been centered in survivor and victim services. So what does a stereotypical survivor look like? Who is the standard for services? Is your programming looking outside of that to see what the unique needs of the communities of color that you're working with are? And then culturally specific work isn't equally as important because it centers the storytelling and experiences of the survivors within your community. And so when we as a community are able to promote our own storytelling and healing, it connects and empowers, enriches, and mobilizes our communities. And it does the same for survivors who are part of that community. So as we know, culture makes a difference in how we can support survivors in our organizations.
Thank you so much, Miranda. I'm going to stop you for 1 second. Could we please highlight, spotlight Fern, please?
Yes, one moment.
Thank you so much.
Let me know when we're good.
We're trying to highlight both ASL interpreters.
Is Vern still on?
Yeah, their name is ASL Interpreter Vern. So you might see it like that.
Sorry for the delay, everyone. We appreciate your patience.
Yes, I think the issue is that Vern might not be on the panelist side, Shalisa. So that's probably
I'll
why.
update. That makes sense. Thank you.
Uh-huh. So Vern, if you could, we need to send you a link to come on to the other side. Okay. For right now, though, is it okay if we still move forward with Tristan and while we on the back end send Vern the panelist link?
Yes. Again,
Okay.
thank you for your patience.
All righty. Can you all see the slides now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Just to keep pushing forward. So culturally specific communities include, but are not limited to, the API, Asian and/or Pacific Islander community, the Black and/or African American community, the Latine, Latinx, and Hispanic community, the immigrant or refugee community, Indigenous Central and/or South American immigrant community, and the Afro-Latine, Afro-Latinx community as well. This list is not limiting, but this is just a framework for how we kind of define culturally specific communities. And within that, we are trying to serve intersecting identities. So intellectually disabled community, mentally disabled community, physically disabled community, disabled community in general. So deaf, non-speaking or non-verbal community, the transgender community, LGBTQIA+ community, young people, so youth and young adults, and then children, and then other adults, such as our elders as well.
All right. This is the part that you all came for. Before I get started in talking about the funds from OVC, I want to talk a little bit about and thank the Office of Victims of Crime, OVC, for this great opportunity. So I would just want to make sure that we gave them additional thank you for this. The Office on Victims of Crime, National Center for Culturally Responsive Victim Services grant program provides culturally specific activities for survivors for all forms of violence from culturally specific populations. The program supports culturally specific organizations that provide strategic, culturally specific programming that addresses violence prevention and intervention in their communities. Next slide. So this is the exciting news. We are awarding up to 15 organizations with up to $100,000 over a 1-year grant period. Next slide. How this breaks down is we're going to offer 5 $100,000 grants and 10 $50,000 grants. Next slide. So the criteria for these funds is that you must be a culturally specific organization developed by and for a culturally specific community, have a demonstrated history of developing and or implementing culturally specific services for culturally specific survivors of any form of violence, be well embedded and respected in your respective culturally specific communities. Next slide. You must also have a willingness to articulate and implement systems and services that will assess program effectiveness, be open and motivated and interested in learning about federal agency award guidelines, and demonstrate potential to benefit from training in federal award guidelines to successfully integrate these guidelines into your grant activities. If you use a fiscal agent, your organization must meet this eligibility criteria as well. Next slide. So let's talk about what you can do with these funds if you're awarded. So under category A for $100,000, you can do activities such as staffing and leadership. You can help with, it can help support staff salaries. It can also help leadership transition, which is huge in our communities. We often don't get this type of opportunity. So it can help you to shift your leadership, your executive leadership focus from programming to administrative support. It can also help scale your organization up. You could also think about ideas as if you're looking at succession planning, for example. Technology improvements to upgrade and acquire technology such as computers, accounting systems, and other essential tools. Things for onboarding, critical resources for survivors, including emergency transportation, temporary housing solutions such as shelters, hotel stays, essential supplies to support survivors in crisis, as well as infrastructure enhancement. So we want to propose activities to bolster the program's foundation, including initiatives that improve organizational capacity or expand culturally specific services. Next slide, please. Under category B for $50,000, you might consider areas such as strategic support and community engagement. Looking at customized methods to support survivors in culturally specific community, creating listening sessions, hosting community events, storytelling activities to amplify survivors' voices as well as share your organization's story, increasing your online presence to create and maintain digital platforms. You might consider looking at program evaluation or public awareness campaigns, as well as capacity building and organization support, grants management, board development, policies and procedures, looking at building alliances in your community, and just general overall organizational growth. Now, I will say that both category A and category B, you do not have to do all of these activities. These are just suggestions. You may come up with something innovative that you would like to present, and that's fine as well. I will say that you must decide which category you would like to apply for. There will be only one application per organization that will be accepted. Next slide, please. I'll now turn this particular slide over to our Finance Director, April Bonner.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We just wanted to point out here on this slide that this grant will be a reimbursement grant, and that basically means you must spend out the money to receive funds as reimbursement. Funds will be provided after your expenses are incurred and receipts or proof of payment are submitted. So just quickly going over that type of process, you would spend first. The organization or recipient pays for the approved project expenses up front. Then you would submit documentation of those expenses via invoices and receipts to support, and it's submitted for reimbursement. And then we would reimburse you with the grant funds and disperse, and we use bill.com for that, and that would cover all of the documented costs. So we wanted you to keep that in mind and definitely plan to manage your cash flow, as funds will not be provided in advance.
Thank you,
Next slide.
April. I appreciate you. Next slide, please. All right, so here are the timeline of activities. Immediately after this presentation, we will supply you with the link for the online application process. So the RFA, the request for application, will be released immediately after this presentation. We will actually release it before we do the question and answer section, because I'm sure that's gonna take some time to answer all of your questions. Again, if you have questions during this segment, please feel free to utilize the chat. We will have a question and answer section at the end. So please hold your questions that you want to say verbally to the end. Otherwise, you can put them in the chat. So we will release the presentation today. January 14th, we will have another question and answer session. So there will be a question and answer pop-up session from 1 to 2 Eastern time on January 14th. Meanwhile, we will send out this recording as well as the link for those that weren't able to join today, as well as if you want to review this recording again. So we will be sending that out. So first is today, we're going to release the RFA. Next will be the pop-up section. Then the next very important date for you to note is that the application close will be January 23rd. So we extended that date. We'll now accept applications for this grant process up until January 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Not 12:01 on the 24th, not the next day. This is a very highly competitive grant process, and we will be closing the grant immediately at that time. And then the review process will start, which is exciting. The next step is the awardees will be notified the week of March 10th. And just so you understand, the grant period for all the activities is retroactive from December 2024 to September 2025. And if you have questions about that, if you're awarded, we will walk you through the process and what you could do to get those retroactive funds. Next slide, please. The submission requirements, we simplified them for ease. You must submit your program narrative, a timeline, and a budget narrative. We have supplied a timeline template and a budget template for you to use as well. So that can also help this process to be more streamlined. Next slide. Okay, what is a program narrative? It's actually the meat of your application. It will define your program scope and purpose and how it will be executed. This is the core of the program's purpose, goals, objectives, and why your program is important. Next slide. Some of the components that you should include in your program narrative should be your program overview and approach. Describe the organization's mission, the culturally specific community you serve, the way that you provide culturally responsive victim services in that community. How does your organization address intersectional barriers faced by victims of violence in your community? You should also include objectives and activities. Outline the primary objectives of your proposed project. Explain key activities you will implement to achieve the objectives. Make sure the objectives are SMART, that they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Will your organization work with other partners or other organizations? You would mention that in this section. Next slide, please. Other components of the program narrative. Please tell us about your community impact and your service delivery. What are the specific challenges that victims of violence face in your community, and how does your program, or how will your program address these challenges? How is your organization connected to the community that you serve? Explain how your culturally specific approach will increase access to services for victims of crime in your community. We would also like to learn about your organizational capacity in this section. What strengths and past experience make your organization well positioned to implement this project? What capacities or resources will you need to strengthen or acquire in order to fully achieve the project goals? Next slide, please. The timeline. This is another very important component of your application. We have a timeline template, a worksheet that you could fill out. And so what you would do is outline your objectives with the corresponding activity. So in the example here, objective 1 for this particular organization is to train local civil associations. So that's objective 1. And then we list under the objective the activities that you're going to do to achieve that objective. So activity 1 of 1 is going to do domestic violence training on a quarterly basis. So then you mark each quarter that it corresponds to. So since they're doing it on a quarterly basis, every quarter they'll be doing this activity. A second activity could have been activity 1 of 1.2. So the second activity under objective 1 could have been host listening sessions with the local civil associations, for example. And maybe they were planning on doing that in quarter 4. So it would only be X'd in quarter 4.
Caitlin, I'm sorry to jump in. I got a request. If you could slow down and review that part again as well.
Sure. So the timeline, we're providing a template. The template will look like this. This is the section of the timeline that we're actually going to provide to you. It will be linked or embedded. It's actually embedded in the online application form is where you would access it. So in the timeline, we would like for you to break down every objective, all the different objectives that you would have named in your narrative. So this is where things flow together. You talked about what you would do in the narrative, and now in the timeline, you're going to talk about how you're going to achieve these objectives. So you will break out each objective and number them. In this particular example, there are 3 different objectives. So objective 1 is training for local civil associations. Activity 1 of 1 is DV training quarterly. The DV training is how they will achieve training the local civil associations. They plan on doing this training quarterly, so they indicated it in each quarter box, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If they had a second activity under objective 1, it would say activity 1.2, for example, they might say listening sessions with civil associations. And maybe that's something that they're only planning on doing in the 4th quarter. So there will only be an X in the 4th, under the number 4. So each of those numbers represent a quarter of the year. Objective 2 in this example is to expand organization capacities. How they want to do that is they want to activity 2 of 1. So the first activity under the objective 2 is to attend a national conference. And that's why it says activity 2.1. They're only doing this in the 2nd quarter of their year. So it's just the X marked in that particular quarter. I can also go over this timeline some more after the end during the question and answer if people want to go over this once again. Again, this particular recording will be saved, so you will be able to review it. This particular template is in the application itself, so you can access it. Next slide, please. So the objectives part, when we talked about in the previous slide, the objectives, which was the first line, should be SMART. It should be specific, SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, reliable, and time-bound. They should show clearly what can be achieved during the project period to achieve the project goal. So these should be measurable activities. Be sure that the objectives state what you intend to achieve and not the activities that will produce those results. So that's the objective line. The activity is the line under it. Limit the number to between 3 and 5 of the most important objectives in this application. So we would like to see 3 to 5 of your most important objectives in the timeline that you submit for this grant application. Next slide, please. Now we're moving on to the budget narrative. This is another template that you will find in your in the online application process. I will go through that in a demonstration in a minute. This particular budget narrative is embedded in the application, just like the timeline was. You can download it and edit it and then re-upload it for submission. So in the budget narrative, what is a budget narrative? It explains how costs of the program activities are estimated. It justifies the cost and the need for funding for these particular activities. It's a very important part of your application, and it's critical in our application review process. So the budget narrative is required. It ensures that our reviewers understand the financial side of your program and what your financial needs are for your particular program and the need for funding. The budget and the budget narrative should include the following cost items: personnel salaries, fringe benefits, travel, if any. If not, then you should indicate that. Supplies, equipment, consultants, or any professionals or consultant travel and operations. And again, every budget narrative may not have all of these items, and that's okay. A complete sample budget and the narrative is provided with you. Next slide. So some tips for creating your budget narrative. Please read the RFA for the required format, and you will receive a template to complete your budget. Make sure that you show your work. We should be able to determine how you arrived at your budget figures. So you should say 2 computers, 3 travel trips, things of that nature, instead of just a grand total number. Take time to read the budget and the budget narrative. Do all of the expenses in your program timeline appear in the budget? Do the budget and the program narrative all align? Don't assume that the reader will understand why a cost is necessary or important. Anticipate the reviewer's questions and provide detailed answers. Please do not wait until the last minute to complete the budget narrative. This section does take time and effort, and it's best to complete it hand in hand with the program budget and the program activities, and really with the timeline as well. All of these different components actually link together to tell a story of your organization and the work that you want to do in your culturally specific community. Next slide, please. All right. Submitting your application. I will share my screen with the application process. One second. Okay. So this is the RFA. I'm just going to scroll through it pretty quickly. So the first section that you see is the request for application. You can click on this link to read the entire request for application with all of the requirements and as well as some additional information. I would highly recommend that you take the time to click on that link and read the entire document before you start the process. The second document is the frequently asked questions form. This is a document that might help you with some of the quick questions that you want to get to. In this document is also another link to the RFA itself. In this section, we go through some of the things we talked about in this grant process, the project description, who the partners are in this project, Ujima, CSA, what is the center, and the goals of the center. So some of the goals of the center are to promote racial equity and victim services for community of color, provide technical assistance, and build the capacity and infrastructure. The center will award 15 grants in total in either the amounts of $50,000 or $100,000 to culturally specific organizations. In this section, it talks about the purpose of these awards and the expectations for successful applicants. Those expectations will include monthly financial reporting and reimbursement requests, meetings with the center, as well as monitoring and evaluations. For your convenience, we also have embedded the grant timeline for your review. The first document that is embedded, you can either print it, you could download it, or you could download it and view it online. So it's larger and easier to read. The first embedded document for a reference is what are the eligible program activities. The second document that's embedded in the application is the eligibility requirements. Criteria, again, you can download it or you can print it from this application. I've filled out some of these questions just randomly in this particular application because the application will not let you move forward unless you answer the questions, and I wouldn't been able to show it to you. So this is just a sample, not how you're supposed to answer it. You answer it what's best for your organization. So the first question is, do you meet all the eligibility criteria outlined above? So that's the RFA, that's all the embedded documents. So that's why it's important to read all of it before you move forward, all of the information that we've supplied to you and linked in this application. So the first question is, do you meet all of the eligibility criteria outlined above? Second question that you need to answer is, which funding category are you applying for? And remember, each funding category, we gave suggested areas that we are funding for. So all of these things should be in alignment with what your request is, how much you're asking for, your budget, your timeline, your activities, etc. We ask that you name your proposed project and then provide a brief description of your organization and proposed project in 200 characters or less in this section at the bottom. Then once you fill that out, it will allow you to go to the next page of the application. Are we waiting for one of the interpreters? Or are they on the screen?
I think they just dropped off.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right,
Tristan.
I don't want to go ahead, so. All right, we're back. So on the next page of the application, we have your demographic information. So we're asking for your organization's name in the first box, your executive director's name, your organization's email address, your organization's full mailing address. Please include your city, state, and zip code. The executive director's email address, the executive director's cell phone. That box is not required. However, if you're able to provide it, it is helpful for us. We would like to know the date your organization started. And in this box, we would like for you to enter your organization's mission and vision statement. Then we ask for your organization website. You can also include your organization's social media links. If you do not have a website, if you do not have a social media presence, in this box, you could type none, N-O-N-E. Next, you would need to list your EIN number with the IRS or and or if you have both, you could list both and please notate which one is which. Or you could just list your state registration number. And then we would need you to list your UEI number. And UEI number, they would get that from April. Can you answer that for me?
Sure. So that's your unique number that you're receiving from being on sam.gov. You don't have to be fully registered, but you have to at least start the process on sam.gov and receive your UEI number.
Thank you for that information,
You're
April.
welcome.
So after you enter your UEI number, you need to enter the name of the person submitting the application, their title, and their email in this box. Then we would like to know what state do you operate. After that section, we would like to know what culturally specific and or historically marginalized community or communities do you serve. You could check all that apply. And this is the list. It's Asian and or Pacific Islander community, Black and or African American community, Latina and or Hispanic community, immigrant and or refugee community, Indigenous Central and or South American immigrant community, Afro-Latinx community, developmentally and or intellectually disabled community, mentally disabled community, physically disabled community, deaf, hard of hearing, non-speaking and or verbal community, transgender community, LGBTQIA plus community, youth, young adults, children, older adults, women, men, and we even have a box for other. If there's something there we haven't covered. What kind of crime and or violence does your organization address? Please check all that applies. Domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, youth and or teen dating violence, stalking, kidnapping, elder abuse, online or digital violence, cyberbullying, gun violence, gang violence, financial crime, sex trafficking and human trafficking, gender-based violence, violent crime, burglary, robbery, theft, and a property crime, drug-related crime, identity theft, terrorism, homicide, DUI, DWI, and other. So if you are other, then you definitely want to highlight that in your narrative, etc., so we can learn more about the work that you do. We would like to know the number of people that you serve per year. So you would enter that in this last box. Now, in this section is where you will find a lot of the application materials. So it describes your program cover page, program narrative, program timeline, program budget, video upload, and attachments. So the first section is referring to the program narrative. Under this box with the embedded document, you can download it or save it and enlarge it so you can read it. Once you complete this section, you can upload it where it says browse files. Click on the box. The folder should open up from your computer, and then you should select your file and upload it from there. The next section is the actual timeline template. So this is the template that we're asking you to use to talk about the objectives and the activities that I discussed earlier. Right underneath it is the area where you would upload your timeline when it's completed. The next section is the budget template. So we provided a budget template for you to fill out for your budget for this particular project for either 50,000 or for 100,000. And then right underneath it is where you would upload that. Next, we are asking for a copy of your evidence of your registration status in your state of business. You can upload it in this section. Then the next section is your form W-9, and we have the link where you can access a W-9. You could copy it and paste it to access, copy and paste it in your browser to access that. And then upload when you have it signed and completed in this box underneath that. Then the next area in this letter is completely optional. It's a letter of support from a community leader or a partner or another community-based organization that could speak to your organization's impact, reputation, and presence in the community that you serve. Again, this attachment C is optional. Next slide. I'm going on to the next section. So in this next session, oh, I gotta fill the form. Oh, because I didn't upload it, it's not letting me go through. So the next session is, give me 1 second. I'm sorry for the delay. I'm uploading some files real quick so I can move to the next section to show you. Okay. So then we're at the end of this application. So at the end of this application, this document that's embedded talks about your willingness to sign and what signing means, what you're agreeing to. So you want to definitely please review that form. And you could download it or print it out to view it. Then we ask for your digital signature in this section, date it, your name, first name and your last name, and then you press continue to submit. And that is the end of the application process. Miranda, can you put the slides back up? We will have another, actually not that date. We'll have another pop-up session in January. I think it was in the timeline what the correct date is. And we will announce that and send out information about that later. Next slide. Before we continue, I want to ask April, I know I kind of went by your section, if you wanted to add anything in regards to the budget requirements, if you had any suggestions.
I just wanted to maybe just point out that
You want us to go back?
the staff travel section is specifically for staff, and then there's
Okay,
a
hold on.
separate one
Miranda,
for
can you go
consultant.
back to that slide, please? This one?
Yeah, so for part C for travel, that definitely is specific for staff travel. Just to point that out so that we're clear, and I think the template clarifies that as well. And then part F has the consultants and the consultant travel. So the consultant services, their contracted services, and also their travel goes in that section. That's it. Great job, Kayla.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's go to, if you have any problems with the form, so we unfortunately cannot provide guidance on the content and what you are actually submitting. But if you're having problems with uploading your documents or having technical issues, please feel free to contact us at the center at ujimacommunity.org. That's the center at ujimacommunity.org. So we can assist you with that. Again, the application is not due till January 23rd, so you have a little time to work on it. But please do not wait till the last minute to start working on it. Next slide, please. I'd like to, Chris Robinson, the Director of Training and Technical Assistance, did you have anything you wanted to share?
No, well, just a couple of questions that were coming up. I know we're going to get to questions, but I also just wanted to um just extend my gratitude to the Office for Victims of Crime and say thank you for this opportunity for us to be able to provide accessibility and funding to culturally specific services and communities and providers. And this is an amazing opportunity. And I look forward to being in this process and in space with all of our organizations. I was trying to keep up with all of the questions, some of the questions I know you all asked. So we're going to get to that, Kaylin. I guess that's next. But some questions that were highlighted about the link, we will be sharing the link. Kaylin, are you going to share the link in the chat? For the
Actually, yes.
To the job.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that will be shared at the end of this call. You will also receive the slide to this and also ways to get in contact with us. And then also an invitation, please come back to the next session that we'll be able to also have our other partners on from CSA as well. And you can get to be introduced and know them. And then we will also send the recording for this Zoom as well. So I guess we can roll right into questions. And if we are not able to answer some of your questions because we want to make sure extra fact check, we will parking lot it, take notes, and we will contact you directly with your with an answer.
Awesome. Let's get to the questions. Do we have any other slides on this deck? I don't remember. All right, we're at the questions. Okay, we can take the slide deck down now. Guess we could start with reading off the questions that were in the chat before we open it up. And we will be putting the link for the application in the chat, and we will also be emailing that out through our email blast list. So make sure that you sign up for our emails at ujimacommunity.org. If someone could put that in the chat as well. So sign up for our mailing list so you can get updates, not only just on this particular grant program, but other training, technical assistance. It's free of charge. We can, outside of this application, we could help you with other things in strengthening your organization. We have events in person, virtual. Ujima just has a lot of great things going on. So you want to stay connected with us. That's ujimacommunity.org. Please, someone put that in the chat, as well as the link for the grant application for the RFA.
Miranda or Shalisa, could you I'm typing answers in the chat, but could you all read some of the questions so we can get that right?
Yep, for sure. All right. One of the first ones, can you please provide the link to the RFP? Yep, we are going to put that in the chat momentarily. Since we serve multiple communities, are we allowed to address multiple communities in our application?
Yes, in the application, you can notate all the communities that you serve. It allows for that.
Sorry about
I
that.
see
I
it.
have an excited dog. All right. Hi, can an agency apply for both categories totaling 150K?
No, you need to pick one. We're accepting one application per organization.
Next question. Can an agency with multiple locations apply individually for each state location?
Do each state location have their own state number or
That question was asked by Kiwanis Jones.
Okay.
If you
So
want.
if they're a independent, if they're like a franchise where they're sort of independent, then and they have their own federal
EIN.
ID number and things of that nature, yes. But if they're really the same organization, then you should just combine your forces together and submit one application.
All right.
Next
The next
question.
question. Can salary expenses be covered in category B projects?
Yes. It could be covered, but that shouldn't be the focus.
Okay.
We understand that you need to pay people to do the activities.
Could you spotlight Vern now that Christian's down? Folks can't see Vern.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's see if Vern is back. Yep. Awesome. Oh,
Have
all
we
right.
put the job form link in the chat?
No,
So
but
when I put the link for the application in the chat, you do, so if you have to leave, if you have to hop off, you can have access to the application. We will still send out the recording. So I don't want people have to feel like they have to stay for the question and answer, but we're gonna hang out a while and answer as many questions as we can. All right, next question.
All right. The next question is, the job form is in the chat for everyone. The next question, if you apply for category A, but would like more applicable to category B, will you be considered or only for what you applied for?
At this juncture, we are what you apply for, because what you apply for, the category should still align with the topics and the suggestion, the areas that we suggested that you should apply for the funding that it covers. So if you apply for the $100,000, then that should align with activities that correlate with the $100,000. And this is, we have 15 grants that we're giving out, and we have 300 people on this call today. It is a highly competitive process. And we're looking forward to getting your applications. Next question.
Thank you. All right, so if you are already a DOJ OVSLE / OVW direct CSSP recipient, are you still eligible to apply?
This is a different grant program under a different funding stream. So grants that you receive under other federal agencies, you could receive grants under other federal agencies and other projects and from other sources and still apply for this funding. Next question, please.
I'm reading through them. One moment.
Okay.
Is evaluation cost something we incorporate in the budget, or will the center provide further support for that outside of the amount granted?
So you're talking about evaluating your own program. You could put that in your budget.
Can an
And it should
applicant,
be in the narrative and the timeline. I'm sorry, next question.
can an applicant submit 2 applications? For example, one proposal as a standalone solo project and a second application as a collaborative project with a different focus with partners?
No, the only way that would work is if you were the partner. So as a lead organization, you should only submit one application. But if you partnered with someone else, you could do that.
Okay, the next question. Hi, I don't see American Indian communities listed. Do we qualify?
Yes, and sorry for that oversight.
Is the grant for nonprofits only?
You do not have to have a 501c3. You just need to be registered in your state, have your UEI and your EIN.
The next one, can you address the retroactive project period? And if a 12-month budget is to be created for a 9-month budget or a 9-month budget?
So it would be from December, the budget will be from December 2024 to September. And the dates will be on the dates are on the RFP. So you would create your budget within those dates.
Right. Any other extension, if there is an extension, the selected grantees would be notified of that.
But as far as you creating your timeline and your budget, use that guideline.
Correct.
Next question, any questions?
Yep, I was just getting through them. The
Oh.
next one, does the budget and the budget narrative only reflect what you are doing with this funding, or should it include other funding sources? Obviously, $50,000 is not your whole program.
Correct. So we just want to know what you're going to do with the money, the 50,000 or the 100,000.
Is there an index for all of the types of documents needed to verify cost?
At this time, we're asking for estimation. At the time that you are awarded, we will have an orientation and we will have our finance department come and do a training on how to handle all your financial compliance concerns.
I'm just going through to see if there are any other ones that you have not already answered. Can you use the grant funds on indirect costs? If so, is there a suggested indirect rate?
April, can you answer that?
You can, and the standard would be the diminished rate 10%, or if you have a negotiated rate with the federal government that you use. So we would need to see that agreement if you do have a negotiated rate.
All right, I'm gonna go to the chat because I saw there were several questions coming in through the chat also.
So I see a question. Oh, go ahead.
I think you're about to answer the one I was going to mention about the pop-up.
But go ahead.
Oh. What time is the pop-up on 12/20/24? If you want to correct that date.
Yeah, that's a correct, the pop-up is gonna be January, I'm sorry, I do not have it. It's going to be January
14th,
14th.
1 to 2 p.m.
So sorry about that other slide wasn't updated. The pop-up will be January 14th from 1 to 2 Eastern time. And we will send that out in email. Make sure that you are a part of Ujima's community.org and you sign up for our mailing list so that you can get all future updates.
Someone just asked, how long does it take to get a decision on the application, and when do the applications close?
The application closed January 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm gonna stay up till that time to push the button myself. So it's definitely gonna close at that time. I see someone.
The other part of that question is, how long does it take to get a decision on the application?
We will be sending out notifications March 10th, the week of March 10th. Someone asked, is the budget template available in Excel format? Unfortunately, we only provided it in a PDF. There are free online PDF editors that you can use to upload and make the changes for free online if you don't have Adobe or a full version of Adobe. So you could feel free to utilize those.
All All right, just give me one moment. I will. Okay, another question is, do we need a tribal council resolution to be able to apply?
We did not require that.
Okay.
Now, there is an optional area where you can put, where it talks about MOU partners and statements from the community. You could upload it in that section if you want to, but it's not required. Someone asked about will the orientation be virtual? Yes, the orientation will be Zoom, and we will let you know the requirements if you are awarded. Someone asked how long should the program narrative be? How many pages? We aren't requiring a minimum or a maximum number of pages. We're asking that you upload it in either a PDF or Word document. People are asking, can you save and come back to the document? I believe you can. If you have a challenge with that, let me know. We'll contact the center at ujimacommunity.org and let us know.
Yeah, the jot form should not delete if you go out of it. Your answers.
Someone has their hand raised.
Someone says the RFA wasn't attached. It's a link at the top of the jot form. If you're looking in the jot form now, it's at the top. And when you click on it, it'll go to a PDF Google Doc with the whole RFA. Okay, we can't take people live if we've gone through all the questions that we received in the chat.
Yeah, most of them you answered either during the presentation or someone had a similar question in the Q&A.
All right, well, let's kick it over to the
All right.
live.
We'll start with Charlie. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, you answered my question earlier, my written question. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you for hanging on. All right, next person.
Lauren.
Thank you. I think Cassandra and I had similar questions. So the program that I coordinate, we provide, again, this was in the chat earlier, culturally and linguistically responsive pro bono therapy for asylum seekers, survivors of torture, trauma, sexual and gender-based violence. But we work with people from up to 30 different countries. So it's not particular to any one national, ethnic, or linguistic group. I'm assuming that we would be eligible, but it's not, culturally specific to, again, a particular immigrant group.
So that is fine. So we would just be looking at in your application, your capacity to serve each of those specific communities that you are talking about in your RFA. So that will be fine.
Great, thank you.
Next person. What's up?
All right.
Hola, soy Dilcia Molina. No sé si la intérprete me puede ayudar. Quiero asegurarme que me están escuchando en el otro idioma dominante. ¿Ya? Bueno, mi pregunta es, si podríamos nosotras hacer en nuestro reporte económico, poner los costos de traducción de los reportes.
Kaylin, can you hear the translation?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
You
The
hear me?
translator, I think you're on mute.
You have
you-
to hit at the
I
bottom.
can
Oh,
just tell you, she asked if you can put the cost of translation within the report for costs.
Yes, yes, you can.
thank you for asking that.
And the next person?
Leilani.
Hi, I was just wondering, and thank you for doing this wonderful program. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. What is the turnaround time on reimbursement after we have turned in our receipts, please?
So once you're awarded, we're gonna have a whole session with our finance department who'll go through that process on turnaround time. I don't know if April is prepared to talk about that now.
Well, that's an easy, quick question answer, which would be 30 days after the date of approval.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, April. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Amy.
Amy Freeze?
Yeah, I had a question the same as someone else in the chat. So I'm actually just going to read his question if that's okay, and hopefully he won't mind. But the question was, if an organization serves a majority of survivors from culturally specific communities, but serves survivors from all communities, and the organization isn't developed by or led by culturally specific communities, does the organization meet the core criteria to apply? And that's the way I'm kind of looking at our organization, because we serve those who are in culturally specific communities, but our organization wasn't started to do so. So I'm not sure if we are eligible to apply.
So you're working in community, which is needed, but is the work that you're doing specifically for that community?
I would say it's probably,
That's something you could talk about with the board and with the, you don't have
yeah.
to make a decision now.
So it wouldn't have to be, but you're saying, so there would be a difference between whether or not we serve intentionally that community, or we just happen to serve that community as we serve the entire community.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Seema.
Hi, I have a question. I may have missed the beginning of it. What is the portal where this application gets uploaded? Like, I'm familiar with EBS, so I wasn't sure. Does it go through like grants.gov or?
No, it's actually a job form. We'll put it in the chat and you could grab that link. We're also going to email it out through our listserv to people who are registered with ujimacommunity.org. Will also receive that in this recording.
Okay, so just to clarify, I did see the RFA. So once the RFA is submitted, we then get the application, or is the application in there already?
The application is the job form. So the RFA is located in the job form, and we just put the link in the chat. We could put it again because it's a lot of things coming through.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Or somebody could repost that. And then if you have any other questions about that, you can email us at thecenter@ujima.org. And we're also going to do a second session just like this in January, and we'll send out the recording. So if you missed earlier in the recording, I went through the entire application question by question. So when you get the recording, you can review that, or you can also join the next session and I'll be doing the same thing again then.
Can you, the Ujima email, can that also be put in the chat, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more hand raised, but I did want to acknowledge Lonza said that the link for January 14th, that has been updated to reflect January 14th. All right,
Awesome.
Aisha.
We were just wondering if the application can be saved and come back to.
Yes, if you have a problem with that, contact us and let us know at the center, ujimacommunity.org. Can somebody put that email in the chat for me, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are those all the hands raised?
So just to add, so before you move forward in the application, test it out to make sure that it does. So don't waste your time trying to do the whole thing and then save and it doesn't. And let us know fairly early. If it does not, we don't want you to have to go through all of that and it doesn't work. So thank you.
All right, I see more hands.
Robin?
Hi there. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you guys are doing this and you're doing such a great job. I wanted to know two things, and I'm sorry I had to drop off for a few minutes, but some of the things that you list in category A and category B, I would need some of the things from category B in order to make category A work. So does that mean I should apply for category A? Or you can't have anything in category A that's described in category B?
No, we didn't say that. We just wanted you to consider what we were prioritizing so you could justify it and talk about it in your narrative.
Okay. And when you said we'd get email sent out to us, is it if we registered for this Zoom call or if we have to be registered on your website?
If you could register for our website, because we don't just automatically, you know, when people
Add you.
register, add them. So we want you to opt in to our mailing list.
Okay, got you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you have not, if you are not the person who registered for this call and you got sent the link, you can just go ahead and email us your information and we can make sure that we add you to our list to receive information.
Will do. I'll send a note to the center at ujimacommunity.org. Thank you.
Yep, that works.
Actually, can you go to, can you just sign up, go to our website, ujimacommunity.org, and just sign up for the mailing list there, if possible.
Okay.
Put that in the link. I mean, that's in the chat.
All right. Paula?
Hello, thank you guys so much for this opportunity. So the question I have for you all is, of course, I work for a college campus and I want to enhance our peer educator program. So I wanted to see if we can pay our students out of the grant, as well as provide travel for them to conferences.
I'll let April answer that. I believe it's yes, but April, what are your thoughts?
So are they interns or are they students? Are they going to be on staff? Are they going to have payroll, W-2, that kind of thing?
We
Like-
could work that out. Currently, they're paid via stipend. And they're required like 30 hours per semester.
Yeah, the stipend word is a bad word.
Okay. Okay.
But we can talk more about that in more detail.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Hello. I'm Jasmine from Kiera's Place in Henderson, North Carolina. I just had a quick question. For category A, with providing critical resources, I did see temporary housing solutions. Would that mean if you have a transitional housing program, or is that, I think you guys had shelters, hotels, for example. So could you kind of scope that? what would that mean? Housing?
So emergency housing for survivors. So if you currently had a shelter, if you pay for hotel nights for victims, things of that.
Yes. Okay, so if you already have a existing house that you have and, the grant could possibly would help with that,
If you
for
were trying to
reimbursement.
get one, maybe and trying to lease it, we wouldn't pay for a purchase.
You would
But if
rent.
you're leasing or renting or something of that nature, then you could include that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And that's even if you didn't already have it, if it's something you're trying to implement, you can include that.
Okay, thank you so
Just not
much.
a purchase. You're
Yes,
welcome.
ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ioannis?
Going for it. I'm going.
Erica. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kiwanis?
This is Erica. I'm for some reason it's showing Kiwanis' name. So I wasn't really clear on the response to the answer for my question about providing services through one agency in two different states. What are we allowed to apply in two separate applications for two different states, although it's one 501c3? Because the other state just does not require us to have a second or separate EIN number to provide services there.
Yeah, we really wanted to limit it to one application per organization. So my differentiation was with there's some organizations that might have a completely like they're so large that they have a whole completely separate franchise with a separate ED, a separate everything, that they might even be considered two separate organizations. We could consider that, but we're trying to support as many organizations as we can through this project. So we're looking at one application per organization. Thank you.
Maria?
Rahia?
Hey, thanks for the detailed update. But right now I don't have any question. If I have any question, I'm gonna email it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Aida?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I must have missed this and I apologize if I did. Is there required travel for like conferences or anything like that, specifically in the grant? Like, are we supposed to allocate specific amount for travel and that travel is dictated? You know how like OVW has certain times they'll say, you have to have $15,000 or 7,000, whatever, specific amount allocated in the budget. Is there a requirement like that?
No, there is not a requirement like that.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Dawn Trina?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Thank you all so much. And I do apologize. I had court earlier today, so I did miss a lot of what was discussed today. However, my question is, will this be recorded and be available for me to go back and review just to kind of see what I've missed?
Yes, it will be recorded. We will be sending it out. We're going to send it out by email, so you can I was corrected. You can email the center@ujima.org and request to be added to our mailing list, or you could go directly to ujimacommunity.org, and we could put that again in the chat, where you can get a copy of the recording. We have already released the RFA. So that job form, if somebody can repost that in the chat. And then we will actually be redoing this entire session again in January. We haven't announced it yet, but we had such an overwhelming turnout that this recording actually reached max capacity of registrants. So we want to open it up again in January. And then the application, we extended the deadline. I don't know if you got that information. The application now will not be due until January 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you have a little bit longer. We're gonna do another session just like this, and we're also gonna do a pop-up question and answer session. Because you know, even though we're given a lot of time today for questions and answers, people will think about it, marinate over it, look over the information, and then still have questions. So we really wanted to give you that time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
There is a question that came in that might be for April. Are reimbursement requests limited to one per month, or are multiple requests accepted?
It would be great if you could do it monthly. If you've missed a month or two and you want to send them in one request, meaning more than 1 month in one request, you can certainly do that. And we'll go over training on how to submit your reimbursement requests in detail.
Someone in the chat has the primary purpose of our organization is not for culturally specific communities, but we do provide services for culturally specific communities, mainly Hispanic communities. Is our organization eligible to apply? I will say this grant is specifically for organizations that have customized and that have specific programs for the culturally specific services that the communities that they provide services for.
Yes, and I can add context. So if the organization is, if your organization is culturally specific for us, by us, and you do service other communities, that, you know, that is totally doable. But if your organization is not culturally specific, but may be culturally responsive, this would not be the grant for you to apply for. But you can be culturally specific and also a culturally responsive organization.
Thank you, Chris. Were there any other questions? All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time. You have all of our email, have our the form for the RFA. We will be sending out the recording. We will be doing this again. If you want to come back, that is perfectly fine. If you want to share it with others that you think might be aligned with what this grant is requesting, definitely share it with others as well. We'll have the pop-up session, another one of these sessions. The grant closes again January 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are looking forward to getting your applications and learning about all the great work that you're doing in your communities. Chris Robinson, who is the Director of Training and Technical Assistance, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, just one last question that says, how do we show that we are culturally specific? So in your narrative, you would add that into your program narrative, and that would reflect the work, and would also share with us about your organization, the leadership, and also your board. So that's where we will primarily find that information from. So no, that's it for me. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays if you do celebrate. Happy Kwanzaa as well. And we thank you so much for coming out to see us. And please follow us on all social media platforms for any updates, and also email us at info@ujimacommunity.org as well if you need any general information, and the center email as well. So thank you all. Have a great one.
Thank you.